What do you do when the music that saved your life can't save the people you love? Picture this: 15 Grammys on the shelf, 8 CMA trophies, a spot in the Country Music Hall of Fame. By almost any measure you can name, this man made it. And yet none of that stopped him from losing the people who mattered most. It didn't bring back his best friend. It didn't keep his father around. It didn't stop his own heart from nearly giving out on him. So today, we're talking about Ricky Skaggs, the Kentucky kid who could play mandolin before he could really read, the boy Bill Monroe himself pulled up on stage, and the man who's still out there at 71, still playing, still carrying every person he's lost inside every note. Stick around, because this one gets heavy, but it's worth it. Let's rewind all the way back to the beginning. Ricky was born on July 18, 1954, in a little place called Cordell, Kentucky, out in Lawrence County, where the hills practically swallow you whole and everybody knows everybody. Now, music wasn't some special event in that house. It was just there, baked into everyday life. His mom, Dorothy, would hum and sing while she went about her chores, filling the house with this warm, church-soaked sound. His dad, Hobart, was a working man, but he had an ear for music, and he'd catch himself listening from the next room whenever little Ricky started harmonizing with his mama. No stage, no spotlight, just a kid trying to blend in with the people he loved. Add in the sounds drifting through the radio, the Grand Ole Opry crackling through static, gospel from the church pews, old mountain ballads passed down for generations, and you've basically got Ricky's entire music education before he ever picked up an instrument. Then, around age 5, his dad handed him a mandolin. And here's the thing: in an adult's hands, that thing looks normal-sized. In a 5-year-old's hands, it practically swallowed him. Hobart showed him 3 chords: G, C, and D, and that was it. 3 shapes. That's all a 5-year-old needs to start building a whole world. And Ricky picked it up fast, way faster than anybody expected. But honestly, speed wasn't really the gift here. The real gift was that his dad paid attention to him. That's it. That's the whole secret. A father noticed his son, and that noticing turned into a mandolin, and that mandolin turned into a career that would stretch across 7 decades. Now here's where it gets almost unbelievable. Bill Monroe, and if you don't know bluegrass, just know this guy, basically invented the genre, rolled into the tiny town of Martha, Kentucky, and somehow, this little boy from down the road got called up on stage. Monroe took his own mandolin, strapped it onto this small kid, and just like that, a local family moment turned into a legend that people in Kentucky still tell today. Ricky had to look up at Monroe the way you'd look up at a mountain. Way too big to fully understand, but close enough to touch. After that night, little Ricky wasn't just a talented kid from Cordell anymore. He was a name people repeated with pride, a symbol of hope for the whole community. Which sounds sweet, right? But think about it for a second. That's a lot to put on a little boy. Other kids get to mess up, and nobody remembers by dinner time. Ricky's mistakes, if he made any, happened in front of grown musicians who'd shaped the genre itself. The applause was real. So was the pressure. Years passed, and Ricky didn't just skip straight from child prodigy to country superstar. Nobody's career works like that. He spent years grinding through bluegrass bands, learning the stuff no living room can teach you: how to survive a tour bus, how to argue with your bandmates and still nail the harmony that night, when to step up and when to disappear into the background. He played with legends: Ralph Stanley, J.D. Crowe, a group called Boone Creek, soaking up everything these seasoned players knew about respecting the music instead of just performing it. Then, in 1977, he joined Emmylou Harris's band, which basically became grad school for him. He learned restraint. He learned that sometimes the most powerful thing a singer can do is hold back. By the time he stepped out as a solo country artist in the early 80s, signing with Epic Records, the sound he brought with him wasn't some manufactured Nashville product. It was seasoned, road-tested, real. Songs like Crying My Heart Out Over You, Highway 40 Blues, and Country Boy hit the radio right when Nashville was hungry for something that felt more grounded, more traditional. Ricky helped pull country music back toward its roots, right as it was drifting away from them. But here's the part most people don't think about. While all this success was piling up, Ricky was also carrying something much heavier, a friendship that never got the chance to grow old. Back when he was around 14, Ricky met another Kentucky kid named Keith Whitley at a local talent show. Both of them were obsessed with the Stanley Brothers. Both of them had that fire teenagers get when they think they've found their calling. One had the mandolin, the other had a voice that already sounded like it had lived 100 lives. When Ralph Stanley heard the two of them together, he brought them in close, and just like that, two kids from ordinary Kentucky towns were suddenly standing near the source of the music they loved. Keith wasn't just a colleague who showed up later in Ricky's career. He was there before any of it. Before Nashville knew Ricky's name. Before either of them understood what the road was going to cost them. They shared all those small, invisible moments. Instrument cases cracked open on hotel floors. That little look between musicians when a harmony locks in perfectly. The private pride of two teenagers who sound way older than they are. Keith went on to build one of the most respected voices in country music. And then, on May 9, 1989, he passed away, right as his solo career was hitting its stride. And that's the part that just sits in your chest, doesn't it? A friendship that started in teenage harmony never got the chance to become an old friendship. There's no version of these two guys sitting together decades later, laughing about that talent show, throwing out an old Stanley Brothers line, just to feel young again. That door just closed, permanently. Life kept moving, because it has to. Records kept coming out. Awards kept getting handed out. But somewhere in the middle of all that music, one harmony had gone silent for good. And the losses didn't stop there. In 1981, Ricky married Sharon White, someone who actually understood the music life, the road, the demands of it all. Their wedding even had "If I Needed You" as their song, which says a lot about how music and love were tangled up together for them from day one. But understanding the road doesn't make the road easier. Ricky's career kept climbing through the 80s, and climbing meant more buses, more hotel hallways, more nights ending in some quiet room far from home. Success looked amazing from the outside, but from the inside, it often just meant another night on the phone instead of at home. Then, 1996 hit, and it hit hard. Ricky lost his father, Hobart, the man who'd handed him that first mandolin and those first 3 chords. And in that same year, Bill Monroe, the man who'd once put his own mandolin on a 5-year-old's shoulders, passed away too. 2 men, 2 different corners of Ricky's life, gone within months of each other. One had given him the music at home. The other had shown him the music belonged to something bigger than home. And suddenly, that mandolin in his hands wasn't just an instrument anymore. It was basically a memory box. Fast forward to 2020. After feeling short of breath and dealing with chest pain, Ricky ended up needing quadruple bypass heart surgery. Now think about that for a second. A man who'd spent his entire life keeping perfect time with his hands suddenly had to lie completely still and let a machine keep time for him instead. He's actually said he was grateful he wasn't out on the road, miles from a hospital, when the warning signs hit. That's a heavy kind of gratitude. The kind that only shows up after you've stared straight at how close you came to not making it. So after all that loss, his dad, his mentor, his best friend, and nearly his own life, what did Ricky do? He went home. Not literally, but musically. Sometime after the mid-90s, as country music kept chasing bigger stages and flashier production, Ricky turned the other way. He went back to bluegrass, the music of his childhood, the sound that never needed smoke machines or spectacle to prove it was real. He put together a band called Kentucky Thunder, and in 1997 released an album that basically staked a claim: this music is still alive. In his own words, he just felt the pull to get back to his roots, back to the sound of his youth. Simple as that. And that's really the story here, isn't it? A man who could have kept chasing bigger arenas instead chose to go back to small rooms and acoustic microphones, where there's nowhere to hide and no way to fake a feeling. Bluegrass doesn't forgive dishonesty. And Ricky, after everything he'd lost, needed a sound that couldn't be faked. Now, in 2026, at 71 years old with his 72nd birthday coming up on July 18th, Ricky's still out there. He released a new song called Say a Prayer this past June, and it doesn't feel like some big comeback. It feels more like a continuation, like a man still walking the same road he's always walked, just further down it now. His hair's gone silver, his body already gave him one serious warning, and he's still standing there with that mandolin, letting Kentucky pour out through his fingers. When you really think about it, every person Ricky's lost is still living somewhere inside that music. His mom is in the very first melody he ever learned. His dad is in those 3 original chords. Bill Monroe is in that moment on a small-town stage when a mandolin got strapped onto a boy too small for it. And Keith is in every harmony that never quite finishes, because the other voice never got the chance to grow old alongside him. So next time you hear Ricky Skaggs play, know that you're not just hearing skill or tradition. You're hearing a man who turned every empty chair in his life into a note he could still play. If this story hit you somewhere, if it made you think about your own dad, your own hometown, or someone you wish was still around to hear you now, drop a comment and tell us who it was. And hey, if you want more stories like this one, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around, because we've got plenty more journeys just like Ricky's coming your way. John Wayne.